Hello fiction fans, T.H. Leatherman here. Today we're going to go over how to write a novel. A lot of new authors struggle with exactly what their writing process is. This can be difficult because there are a lot of different ways to write a novel. Here are the 10 steps you need to do in order to publish a book. I know a lot of different writers, and no two writers have the same method for writing novels, but they do fall into two specific camps. For the most part, writers are either plotters or pantsers. A plotter is a writer that outlines everything and puts things together in an order and then writes it. A pantser is a writer that writes by the seat of their pants. They go through a discovery method to find their characters and the plot of the novel. So first I'll go over what goes into a plotting writer. I myself am a plotting writer. The first thing I do is I sit down and I write out the first 3 chapters of the book. This is probably about 10 to 15,000 words. During this period, I'm actually discovering who the characters are and what's going on in the story. I do this because I'm usually inspired by an idea for a character or an idea for a plot, and I want to figure out where it's going by putting those words down on a paper. Once I have those 3 chapters down, I then go back and plot out the rest of the book. And that's going to be probably about 50 to 100 plot points for a 70 to 100,000 word novel. After I get through plotting that out, I then go through the story arcs. Where is the story going? Where is it starting? Where is it ending? What's going to be the growth periods in the middle? I then go through the character arcs. What is going to be the growth points for the character in the novel? How are they going to grow and change through the course of the novel? I then determine where these conflict points are going to be. Now, in a standard novel, there are going to be 2 or 3, maybe even 4 main conflicts of the novel. And there's going to be rising tension between each of them. What is that going to look like for the main character or characters of that novel? And there are all sorts of different ways that you can do this. A lot of authors prefer the 3-act structure, but that is by no means the only way that you can write a novel. I then go and make character sheets for all the primary and secondary characters that are going to be in the novel. This is going to include things like their height, their weight, how they view the world around them, who they know, if they have any affiliations with organizations in the novel, or certain belief structures that they have. It will also include that particular character's growth throughout the novel. What do they need to grow and change? Keep in mind that locations are also characters in the novel. They're going to be visited, and people are going to get attached to these locations. They need to have their own character sheets as well. The next thing I do is research. If this is taking place in a real location that actually exists, or there's real technology that I need to understand, I spend a portion of my time researching all of this information. How are these elements going to fit into the novel? The next thing I do is write. And by write, I mean I have daily word count goals and I have a deadline for when I want the book to be completed. I follow this as religiously as I can. So what are the advantages of plotting? Number 1, you never get writer's block. You always know where the story is going. You know, writer's block, when your cold, unfeeling keyboard stares at you mockingly. The disadvantage of plotting is that sometimes you can get too married to the plot. Sometimes in the middle of the story, you might have a really great idea, but you feel like it doesn't fit into the story because it's not part of your outline. This is not necessarily the case. You can have discovery elements as a plotter and then go back and put those elements back into the book. The next way of writing a book is called pantsing. It starts off the same. You typically write the first 3 chapters of the novel without looking at where they are or where they're going. You're getting to know the characters, you're getting to know the world in which those characters live. If you include a joke in your book, make sure it's not about eating clowns. Clowns taste funny. After those first 3 chapters, stop. You now need to know where those characters are going. That means discovering where those plot points are, where those conflict points are in the book before reaching the final point of the novel. The next part is very similar to the plotting in that you come up with word goals that you're going to try to get every day. The research phase is slightly different for pantsers because you're going to do research as you discover different plot elements in the book. You'll write along and then say, oh, I need to know more about this subject. Well, then you go back and you discover more about that subject. A problem that pantsers sometimes run into is they get into the research mode and they don't want to stop. You have to understand enough to make the work believable, but you don't want to get so sucked into the research that you stop writing entirely. Now, if you're going to create a series as a pantser, you're going to need to create what's known as a story Bible. You're going to have to go back and write things down about the people, places, and things that the characters are going to run into. As a plotter, you've already done this, so you don't have to go back and create the story Bible. Your story Bible has already been created because you plotted everything out beforehand. One of the advantages of being a pantser is that the entire writing process is discovery. Now, this can be exciting and a little nervous because it may not end up where you thought it was going to end up. One of the disadvantages to the pantsing style is that you run into squirrels. Squirrel! Squirrels are different plot points that you get into and write about and then suddenly realize it doesn't belong in this book. It's not something that really contributes to the central plot. And so you then have to get rid of several thousand words that you may have written. At this point, you may ask yourself, how long does the book need to be? About 8.5 inches. Once you've written the first draft, either by pantsing or plotting, the next thing you do is find a critique group. A group of aspiring or published authors who read their work to each other on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Sometimes this is done in person, a lot of times this is done online. Different authors will offer suggestions on ways that you might improve your work. Keep in mind that there are all sorts of different people at different levels of experience, and so not all of their suggestions will be actionable, things that you want to do things with. However, if 2 or 3 of them say, if this doesn't work, you might want to change whatever it is they say didn't work. The next stage in the writing process is editing. There are all sorts of different types of editing. There's proofreading, copy editing, line editing, and developmental editing. Each of them serves a different function based on what your story needs. A lot of new authors choose to have a developmental editor, someone who's going to say, these are the kind of things that need to happen to this character in order for the book to be believable and readable by a reading audience. What is going to make this book more saleable and interesting to your readers? One of the things I think is absolutely necessary is to have a copy editor. The copy editor will find all those things that you missed because you've looked over the manuscript so many times and your eyes go over it every single time. They can locate misspelled words or correctly spelled words that are wrong for that situation. Never date an apostrophe. They're too possessive. Once the editing phase is out of the way, you need to find a dozen to 20 people to beta read your book. These are people who read in the same genre that you write in and can offer you feedback on how to make the story better. Like the critique group, not everything they say is something that you want to take to heart. However, they will often give you good advice on how to make the story better. If you're not getting very good advice from them, then you need to remove that person from your beta reading list. The next stage of the writing process is promotion. You need to go out there and promote your book. That means social media, Twitter, Facebook, Amazon ads. However you decide to promote your book, you need to get out there and make sure people know that it's about to come out and generate the buzz that makes people want to go out and buy your book. The next stage is to decide whether or not you want to go to the traditional route or the indie route for publishing your book. In the traditional route, you take your book and you send query letters to various different agents. Those agents then decide whether or not they want to represent you. The agent will then probably make suggestions on improving your manuscript, and you'll go through and do that. And then the agent will then submit your book to various publishing houses. And then those publishing houses determine whether that's something that they want to print. This process can take a while. Finding the right agent and the right publisher that fit your genre and your writing style can take quite a while. You may decide that you want to go the indie route. If you do the indie route, that's fine too. It doesn't have the stigma that it used to. If you go the indie route, all the things that are normally taken care of by a publishing house, you have to do all that yourself. It's daunting, and there's a lot that you have to learn in order to do it that way, but in my experience, it's well worth it to get a good idea of how the publishing industry works. If you're going the traditional route, the rest of this list probably doesn't apply to you. The first thing you're going to do is contact the Library of Congress and copyright your book. This protects your work from being stolen by someone else, although once your book is in its final form, the copyright laws already protect it, so it's an additional step that just helps protect you a little bit further. Then you're probably going to want to find some cover art for your book. Now, there are a bunch of online cover art services that you can use, but a lot of people use services like 99 Designs or Fiverr to have someone create a book cover for them. Both options are good. Once you have the cover art in place, the next thing you're going to want to do is format the book. You'll have to do a little bit of research here because ebooks are formatted a certain way. Paperback books are formatted a different way. Hardback books are also formatted a slightly different way. You'll need to figure out what sort of typeface and font work best for your type of writing. The next thing you want to do as an indie publisher is you want to publish your work. Now, you can do this either through Amazon or Ingram Spark or a few other services like Smashwords. These people will get your book out so that your audience can find you. You still need to promote it though, because just because you published a book doesn't mean that people are going to automatically know where to look to find it. Get your name out there. Publish a book and then promote the heck out of it. In summary, that's 1. Write the book using the pantsing or plotting style. 2. Find a critique group. 3. Find an editor. 4. Find beta readers. 5. Promote the heck out of your book. 6. Figure out whether you're going to go the traditional or the indie route for publishing your book. 7. Copyright. 8. Cover art. 9. Format your book. And 10. Publish your book. I hope this video helps you determine your particular writing style. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. I post weekly. If you have a topic you'd like for me to cover, message me on Facebook. Check out my novel, The Burning Sun, which is 99 cents on Amazon for a limited time. If you enjoyed this episode, like or comment below. So long, fiction fans!